Hey everyone, I'm Brian Austin Green.
I'm Sharna Burgess.
And I'm Randy Spelling.
And you are listening to Oldish, an iHeartRadio podcast. Welcome to Oldish again, right? Thank you so much for listening, everybody that has.
We do have really important stuff to get to today. Last episode, we did addiction and it was deep. Randy so beautifully shared his story.
So did you.
Both of you guys.
I actually, you know what, Randy? I was actually sharing with Brian last night that I was having this anxiety come up about having shared this part of me that was before now basically unknown to people, especially in the public eye. And it really started to stress me out of those residual feelings of shame coming up and embarrassment and seeing headlines come up and the words used. And it's not that they made up words. They are the words. It's just when you see them written in black and white, knowing that thousands of people are reading them, it was really intimidating. I felt very vulnerable and scared of it for a second there, of like, oh my God, what have I done?
It can be a bit embarrassing when you stumble in life at any point and everybody knows about that stumble. You share that with everyone because you open yourself up for judgment, which is not an easy experience. A lot of people have trouble. And
no one has judged me. I think it's me judging myself and waiting for people to judge me because of those feelings and emotions that have came up. But Bri just so beautifully listened to me last night, and I love you so much. And I just want to say that to you. Thank you for listening and letting me share my feelings. And then, reminding me that was such a long time ago and it was only one part of my story, and that sharing it can help someone. It can be a source of inspiration. It can help someone see that, there is a way out. And I hope that is true. I hope us sharing our stories truly reached people in a beautiful way and in the way that it was meant to. But
it sounded like it did from the feedback from all the people who wrote in and commented. It seemed like people really appreciated that.
Right.
And I don't know if this is true for you. You'll have to let me know. But I think one of the things that also comes up when you share such a deep, vulnerable, unknown part is the idea of perception. How am I going to be perceived?
Yes.
And even though we could say, okay, look, we've done a lot of inner work, we don't really care that much. We're human. There's a perception.
Yeah.
Like, are people going to think less of me? Does this mean that that I'm somewhat, bad? Or all those ideas and those feelings come up, and they have to be worked through. This is part of working through shame, is allowing that to come up. And what you did is you had someone who you could process that with.
Yes, and I'm so grateful for that. Very helpful. I love you, baby. Thank you.
I love you too, baby.
Not that I mean to turn this into our love fest, but I'm very grateful.
The fear of judgment is very real. I don't think for people that haven't experienced it on the level that others have, the way the media works and the way that they pick up these things that we talk about and they report them like it is something present and something new. When you guys were telling stories about things that happened 20
and 25 years ago.
20 and 25 years ago.
Yeah. I was in my early 20s. Sharna was 17.
Teens, 15 to 17.
Right.
It's a very long time ago.
Yeah, but it's like you reopen a wound, and media and places like that feel that it's something that you are currently dealing with now, and they report on it as such. And your worry is, okay, so now is somebody going to question who I am as a person now because of what I went through before?
Back then.
I think it's getting people to realize that this is what we do. We set out to do this show. We set out to talk about these things.
To be vulnerable.
And share them because we aren't alone, and a lot of the people that are going through these things aren't alone. And so it's really leading by example, I think, and we've talked about that before, but I think that's a real important thing to do.
And on that note of leading by example, Randy, you so beautifully shared your story, and we have such a safe space here, and it gave me comfort and courage to share my story with you guys. So thank you for giving me that space. I really appreciate that.
Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for listening to me. That is, it's so interesting to share these stories and parts of yourself intimately.
Right.
I think there's such a difference. I can talk to, 2,000 people and talk about this, but there's something different when everything is slowed down. There's no hype.
It's just the three of us.
And it's slow and raw. And it's like, oh, I am bearing my soul.
Sure.
But something also magical happens is when you can share like that, I feel like there's an ownership of the parts of yourself, your story. And I think, we talk about the title Oldish a lot, but to me, that is what Oldish represents, part of anyway, is that we are at the place that we could talk about something so hard, so raw, such a big thing in our lives, and stand in that, even if there is judgment by some, even if people might go, oh, well, wow, she went through that or he went through that. It's okay, because we have to accept all the experiences that we've had. And until we do, they will cause problems. They will cause guilt and shame. And we tend to hide these parts so no one else sees them. So it's very important to own your stories, own your experiences, because that's how we grow.
Absolutely.
I'm completely, I've come to terms and I accept the concept of being judged for anything that I possibly say on here, because to me, if I can help one person in life, then it's worth it. Judgment it's nothing you can really control. All I can do is be completely honest and open on this and hope that it positively affects one person and someone listens and they have that moment of realization in their own lives in a different way. So if I played any part in that at all, I can deal with clickbait for a week.
Right.
That's fine.
I think we've unlocked a subject we need to get to, which is fear of judgment.
Ooh,
and the
yes.
importance we put in other people's perception of us. I think this is a subject we should absolutely get to on another episode.
That's a great one, because I have run from that so much my whole life.
Ooh, same, but also ran right into it with what I do. So well done me. Okay, we have some incredible questions that came in today for today's episode.
First, should we get into the conversation a little bit about, because the last time we did all this, we were in Vegas. We were there for the iHeart.
Let's share a funny story about Vegas. Ready?
We can probably share a couple of funny stories.
Well, this is Bryce and my funny story from Vegas. So it's our engagement announcement, basically, right? And we're there. We're having an amazing time. It's just, mum and dad's night out, right? And it's free drinks and it's tequila, which is our favorite. And everyone at iHeart's taking care of us. We feel very, very special. And we're at the festival listening to all the music. Miguel's playing. I'm in my feels. More tequila comes. And suddenly we hear the lineup for the second night. And I look at Bri, eyes wide, like I'm 15 years.
We're like, oh, man.
We should totally stay.
Yeah, we can't.
We should totally
miss
stay
this.
for a night. We got to stay. Oh, my God. Foo Fighters, Public Enemy.
So right away, we text Amy Sugarman and everybody up at iHeart. And we're like, hey, what are the chances of being able to stay and, watch the show tomorrow night? And the whole thing will go back on Sunday.
She said on it. They change our flights. They book our hotel for another night. And I wake up the next morning, hungover, by the way, with deep anxiety about the fact that we made everyone change our plans when realizing we have kids.
Right. We have no, we haven't lined up any childcare. We have nothing at all.
What planet were we on last night?
We did have to change it back.
We did.
We got on a flight later on that afternoon and we flew back home because there was no question that we had to make that
We literally
change
could not stay.
because our flight the following day on Sunday would have been 8 p.m., which means we would have stayed all day Saturday for the show, the second night of the festival, and then all day Sunday just hanging out and eating. And our kids,
who was with our kids?
But in the moment, it probably sounded
so fun. Yeah,
Can we
sounded
also
so fun.
talk about the picture that you texted me of the child
popcorn
size?
Oh my God, the popcorn!
bag
Yeah,
that
so
made it in your room.
Again,
Yeah.
tequila.
Tequila
is a wonderful party friend.
So we were walking out at the end of the night, and at some point, Sharna had said, God, I really want some popcorn. And someone who was working there,
Talk about
we're
manifest
assuming,
instantly.
we don't know. We still don't know who this person was.
No,
reached
we don't
over
know
to
if
a
he worked
cart
there.
that had these big bags of popcorn for sales and just grabbed a big bag and handed it to us. And it was like, yeah.
Yo, we have a photo of it.
Yeah, show Randy that.
We
right
should.
there.
I have a bunch.
Yeah.
I have some amazing photos that I'll send you of that, and a video of me intoxicated but laughing about it. So funny.
This is the picture that I sent to Randy.
Before he sent the picture, though, he said, dude, we wound up with the biggest bag of popcorn you've ever seen. And instantly, I had an image in my mind of the movie. I forget what it is, but it was with Woody Harrelson and Demi Moore, where they're in Vegas and they're throwing money all over. I had an image of you guys bouncing on the bed, throwing popcorn.
Could you imagine the hotel would have been like, they can't ever stay here again. But it was such a good time. Needless to say, we actually didn't eat any of that popcorn.
No, because the bag was so big. There was a part of us that was like, okay, if we open it, it's just going to end up everywhere.
It's half the size of you.
I know, it's huge.
It's amazing.
Randy, look at this picture.
We'll have to post this so everyone can see what we're actually talking about.
Yeah, we'll post it.
Yeah.
So can we talk about my experience?
Yes.
Randy, I know. It was
yours.
very different. My goodness.
There was no tequila for me.
No.
There wouldn't have been anyway.
Right.
Because I don't partake. However, I got there Thursday night and was waiting for you because your flight got delayed. And I got hit with some sort of stomach bug or food poisoning because I was down and out.
Yeah.
I mean, this hasn't happened to me for a long time.
You're still down and out.
I'm right. My
still
stomach
recovering.
Still isn't. I'm drinking butternut squash soup right now. That's an indicator.
You have much more color in your skin than when we finished that
Dude,
carpet. I
you were
looked at you and I was
yellow.
like, Randy's not well.
Oh yeah, you looked like a Simpsons cast member when we left. I was like, oh man, Randy, you gotta get back to the hotel and sleep.
I had no hydration in me. I couldn't keep anything down. So that was interesting.
That was interesting.
Now,
but
in your defense,
hold on, I got to give you props though, Randy. You are such a champ because I've had stomach bugs before, and there's no way that I could have been able to do that carpet.
Such a champ.
And answer all the questions and you were just so amazing at it.
And stupidly, with my lack of medical knowledge, I was like, "Ooh, there's fresh ginger right here, and there's lemon."
Oh my God!
And so he made
Never,
a
ever
tea
listen to
that
Brian.
was ginger and lemon.
This would be great.
And he was
for
like,
your
"Okay,
empty...
my stomach feels terrible now." I was like, "Okay, well." That's
the
worst,
your intention
the
was
worst choice.
so well meaned, and
it
Sharna,
totally was.
It
was just so inappropriate.
My face.
Your face when you came over, and Brian was so excited. He said, "I got Randy some ginger and lemon tea." And you looked at me and you said, "Oh, did it help?" And I said, "No." And you said, "Oh, no."
Yeah, you're very sensitive, very acidic stomach. Let's just put more acid in there. That sounds like a really good idea.
I don't.
You know what? Just eat the whole lemon. I think that's a good idea. Rind and all.
I'm not good.
We made it through.
I love you so much.
We made it through. So
You're so
back.
pretty. Maybe you're so pretty.
Right, totally. You're so well spoken.
You're so pretty.
No one wears jeans as well as you do.
Oh my goodness.
So we're back from Vegas.
Vegas.
We're here now to answer your question.
We are.
Let's get into this.
Yeah, okay.
Let's get into
Let's
it.
do that.
All right, Randy, I'm going to ask you the first one. And though it seems simple, I feel like there's a lot of people that ask this question that may be new to experiencing someone with addiction. What advice would you give to talk to a loved one that's struggling?
So to talk to a loved one who is struggling, there needs to be a lot of care, a lot of consideration, and if you come from your heart. So people who are struggling with any sort of addiction have a tendency to become very defensive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you sit down and you start with, you have a problem, immediately someone is going to get really defensive. Versus if you say, "I love you, I'm here to help, I'm here to support," it seems as though you are struggling. I'm worried about you. And whatever else you might say that is true for you. And then go into that conversation with as much information as you can. Talk to someone who's been through the addiction that you think or perceive that person to have. Know that there are options and share these options with people. Maybe they could even talk to a friend or a colleague or a loved one or some sort of professional to figure out the best way that they can get help. But it's really important that they know that it's possible. They're not alone. You're there to support in the ways that you can, and that you love them, and you notice that something is off.
Right. To let them know they're seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's perfect advice. I mean, I have no professional opinion to add to this. We're going to be leaning on you a lot today for these answers, Randy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that sounds so right to me. You know, I can imagine that it would be hard for anyone to receive if they are going through and battling addiction, but being as gentle and kind and loving and giving them no judgment, no judgment for what they're doing, I think is a really big thing, to make them feel shame about it, but to make them let them know they're seen and they're supported. It's beautiful advice.
Yeah. And there are so many different types of meetings, from AA, NA, Al-Anon. There are interventionists. There are outpatient facilities, treatment facilities. And a lot of times those people are willing to talk to the person, to just have a conversation. And that can be helpful, just to know, because it's scary to give it up.
Of course.
That's the biggest thing. It's really scary to give it up, because usually people can't imagine their life without that thing, without that crutch. And to talk to someone who's on the other side, to talk to someone to just garner that little bit of hope, and that hope, that connection, to have a reference point, to see that person who's made it through, and to say, wow, you've done it. Your life is good. You're happy. You're able to live. And just to have that open and honest conversation is really helpful.
Very much so.
You know what? I'm going to read most of these questions, because you two were the ones that shared the most during this. So I'm much more sort of the listener, and I am the person on the outside that can take the view for someone that has someone in their life that is dealing with addiction. So I'll try and take this side and help however I can, and then you guys answer away.
All right, baby.
Yeah. Number 2 is coming from Ben, and the question is, how do you avoid triggers? What do you think Ben triggers for himself or triggers for other people?
I would think for themselves.
For themselves.
How do you avoid the things that trigger my wanting to use or partake in the addictive behavior?
Right.
Do you want to start, Sharna?
Oh my God. Again, I have no professional opinion here. I think you have to make that choice to avoid them first, and to understand where those triggers could possibly be, and try to maybe avoid being in those spaces. I think keeping yourself busy with something else for, I don't know, Randy, I think you're better at this. Like, if I think of my own situation, it was that I truly moved. I'm not telling people they should move, but I changed my location. I changed my where, because all of the people in my where were in that space. And I knew that if I stayed in that space, I would continue to exist as I was doing.
Absolutely.
So I had to change my where. And for me, what was so great about that is I could find another place and get back into something that I loved. So I found strength in getting back into dance and being so incredibly focused on that it gave me something to work towards. But it does not mean that I did not have the universe put triggers in my way of the first night. I remember the first night I went out drinking with people from the dance studio I was in. Someone literally came up to me walking out of the bathroom and offered me drugs, offered me like ecstasy, right? Pills. And I was like, it was so hard for me. And had I have not been there with this whole cast of dancers that didn't know my story and trying to hide my shame of it, I probably would have said yes to it. You know what I mean? So
I would assume too that time would have a big effect as far as triggers go. If you are newly sober and you're really trying to get out of something and you're actively in it at that point, it's much more important to stay away from things that could possibly trigger you than further on down the line when you've really accepted the new life and the way you're going to live it and what is okay and what you can and can't deal with.
right.
Time is huge. Sharna, you talked about environment. Getting out of the environment that triggers you is an absolute yes. So
Right.
for someone, let's just talk about alcohol. Let's
Yep.
just pick that. If going to a bar and watching people drink all around you and pour drinks, and if that triggers you, don't go to a bar. And the hardest part for people is the forever mentality. I'm never going to be able to go into a bar for the rest of my life. And then the thoughts that come as a result, that is not true. Now, you may have no interest in going to a bar 4 years from then, but it's not forever. It won't bother you in the same way. It's like going through a horrible breakup and then you see a picture of that person. Seeing a picture of that person when you're raw and exposed and hurting is very different than 4 years having 2 other relationships, and you're looking at that picture and you're going, oh yeah, that's part of my past.
Right.
No big deal. Boredom is a huge trigger. You talked about that.
Yeah.
Boredom is a big one. And boredom, we have to replace the time that we take to be in the addiction. You have to replace it with something else. Otherwise, you're left with your thoughts. You're left with all of the potential inner triggers that drove you to the addiction in the first place.
That's so true. Yeah.
Like you said before, though, that doesn't last forever.
It doesn't last forever. No, this is not a forever thing. I mean, This is why in programs like AA, I mean, one of the biggest things out of that program, I think that's really stuck with people is 1 day at a time.
Yeah.
And that isn't just singled out for addiction. That is in Buddhist philosophy. That's be here now. That's live in the present moment. It's just look at right now. And if you can do that and avoid those triggers, it sets you up for success in the best way possible. So first, identify all triggers that you have. Name it. Write them down. Be vocal about it. Talk to the people around you about your triggers. Really get clear on what those are. And once you know those, love yourself enough, care for yourself enough, advocate for yourself enough not to be around those triggers. If you have to change your friend group, if you have to change your environment, if you have to move. I moved apartments because I could not be in the same apartment with those same cues because all I could remember is what I was doing before, and I had to get out. So if you have to not be around family members even, you have to do what you need to do to take care of yourself, because for some people, your life could depend on it.
Right.
And I know that's extreme, but you never know.
Right.
Right?
So that, I think, easily leads then into this next question that Pam had sent us, saying that she recently quit smoking, but being around friends and family members who still smoke makes me want to pick one up again. Is there any advice on how to talk to my friends about how I'm feeling? Now that there are all forms of addiction. There are so many things across the board in different ways.
Definitely.
Again, can absolutely affect your health. That's a tough situation because a lot of people do smoke and don't consider it an addiction like other things. But it's tough quitting. I smoked when I was younger.
I did too.
It's tough to quit.
I smoked for a long time, yeah. Randy, how would you approach that with family members and friends to say that your habits are your choice, but I cannot It's really triggering for me.
Imagine if literally everyone within your sphere in your world they smoke, and you decide that you want to quit.
And they haven't put the importance on quitting like you have. So it's like, I get how that's tough.
It is very tough. And something that you can say is, I have chosen to do this for me,
right?
For my health. There's no judgment, because that can separate people, right?
Totally.
The people who are still smoking.
Like, what you think you're better than me type of stuff.
Exactly.
Right.
So just take full responsibility and own it. Own it and say, look, I'm doing this, and you do you. I'm totally okay with that, but it's so hard for me to be around because I want to partake. I hope you understand. I hope you can support me in it. When you go to smoke, I am going to go the opposite way.
Right.
Right.
And please don't take that personally. Please understand, I'm just taking care of myself because I've made this choice. Mm-hmm. Can we do that? Can
we make a smoking section? Can we do something to start
to figure
differentiating
it out?
between the two? So everybody's making a little more of a concerted effort to smoke around or not smoke around somebody.
Yes.
And maybe also, like, taking it back to something Randy said, is to let them know this is not forever. It won't forever be that I can't be around you, but for this time where I'm feeling that it is difficult for me, we have to figure something else out. Well, you guys said it better than me, but relaying that it's not forever.
Right. Yeah. And stopping smoking, also called smoking cessation, they're one of the most helpful parts. I think there's 5 parts to smoking cessation. And that's a hard word to say. Cessation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Cessation.
What is cessation? Help.
You want the exact definition? I think it's stopping, so not doing it.
Cessation. I've never heard that.
Not doing that thing.
It's what happens when you have a professional in the room.
I know, right? Wow, I'm learning.
You learn
I'm
things.
I'm just trying to sound like I know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Randy, you're killing it.
So one of the most powerful tools in smoking cessation is wait. Just wait 5 minutes. When you get a craving, when you go, oh, that's hard, they're going out to smoke, just wait. But if you don't partake in that activity, that addictive behavior, you have to replenish. You have to fill it with something. Mm-hmm. Go on a walk. Go, I'm a big fan of doing something physical because it changes brain chemistry.
Right.
This is why a couple weeks ago I was actually skipping because it changes the brain. Do something playful. Do something creative. Go talk to a friend. Go fix something that's a toleration that you need to fix. Go busy yourself, because once you do and your mind is on something else, you will stop thinking about the addictive behavior and it will pass.
Yeah,
Great advice.
That's not a permanent thing. It's not like from now to the end of time, every single time you're having a feeling about smoking, you're going to need to skip. It's like you do that for a little while until the sensation is not quite the same, and you realize I don't have to do that thing and distract myself to stay away from this activity.
Exactly.
I think that's an amazing tool, that just like wait 5 minutes and fill it with something, is also because again, we've said addiction can be so many different things. That could be for if you find yourself on Instagram for too long, or if you're trying to eat healthier and you have a craving for sugar, like give yourself 5 minutes and go do something else, whether it's physical, something creative. I love that advice. I think that's such a great idea, because more often than not, your brain will then forget about it and move on to something else.
Right.
And then you practice that again once it comes up. Wait 5 minutes, find something to do. Your productivity will go through the roof.
Absolutely.
Nessa.
Yes.
Do you think people can become addicted to their phones? Quick answer from me, absolutely.
I think nearly everyone is addicted to their phones.
Yeah. Should I read this? Should I read the fact, some numbers that we actually have here? Because they're alarming to read. And we were going to challenge ourselves first to see if we could even guess anywhere near these numbers. But then all three of us read
Right. So there's no
so
guessing
like,
now.
Okay,
Now we know.
Yeah,
now we
guessing's
know.
done. So a recent study reported that on average, people touch their phones 2,617 times daily. Average people, top 10%, touches their phone more than 5,400 times daily.
That's insane.
That is insane. So
day, 5,400 times.
So yes, we are all
Let's put this
addicted.
in the right context. I would like to know if you two, from the moment you wake up to the moment you go to bed, can spend a day trying to hit touching each other
That's impossible.
5,000 times. You would think something's wrong if someone tried to touch you 5,000 times a day.
That person has issues.
Even if you love them.
Yeah.
You're like, what
We'd
is
be
wrong
divorced
with you?
before we got married.
Totally, yeah.
Like it's just too
this
much.
person has abandonment issues, and so there's, that's why they're touching
Like
each other.
I'm a touchy feeler. Like, love language is touch, right? Personal touch. But
right.
even for me, that would be suffocating
much.
5,000 times a day.
2,617 times a day is way too much. I couldn't imagine doing that number.
But like, are we talking like, here we go, touching my phone. Ready? There's one. But are we talking like how many times my fingers like tap as I'm typing? Or I literally pick up my phone that many times?
Setting it down, turning it off, picking it back up, checking something, setting it down. I think that is the sequence that they're counting.
Oh my God,
because
that's
think about
devastating.
this. You have to carry it with you. You have to put it down. You have to open it. You have to close it. You have to pick it up.
How
you have to
often?
scroll.
How often do you check? Because I do this. I'm totally guilty of this. I put the phone in my pocket, think I feel it vibrate or do something, so I pick it up just to unlock the screen and check. And then it's like, oh, there's nothing there, and then I lock it again and put it back in my pocket. I'll do
Totally
that
an addiction. It is.
at least probably 175, 50 times a day. I mean, that's like a regular.
More.
It's a regular activity for me.
And then there's the loop that people do.
What's the loop?
We're going to get into this actually on the following episode.
okay.
So let's
All right.
save that.
All right.
Because
Okay, so let's save that. So,
gonna-
All right,
answer
there's a
to your
teaser.
question then, Nessa. Can people become? Absolutely, they can become.
Yes.
Yeah,
addicted.
and
Yes.
next episode we are actually talking about distractions, and a lot of this stuff is going to come up. So make
Yeah.
sure you listen to that one as
Social
well.
media is a big one.
So
Ashley.
Yeah, go for
Sorry,
it, baby.
no,
Sorry,
no.
you're reading.
Ashley, my son is addicted to his phone, and I try to limit him, but it's hard. Any advice?
Model the behavior that
Yeah.
you want to see in your son.
Yeah.
So if you think that he's on his phone too much, then what you can do is set some ground rules. Hey, when we're at the table, get a phone safe, or everyone puts their phone away when you're all talking.
Yeah.
You say, hey, let's try something. Let's try just putting our phones down.
Devices down from this time to this time.
For 30 minutes. We'll set a timer. For 50, start with 10 minutes. If it's out of control, literally start small. I like to set people up for success and not put such big parameters. It's like for 2 hours, we're not going to have our phone. For some people with a phone addiction where they're on their phone too much, that's way too long.
Right.
Set 10 minutes, 20 minutes, and start to practice what it's like being without the phone, because that's really what it is. It's not being used to having the comfort of this crutch, which is firing stimulation anytime they choose.
I think that's very age appropriate. Also, this question. I mean, she's saying my son is addicted to his phone. How old is your son? I think limits should start there, dependent on age. I know with our kids, we give them, because they like to. They're not on social media on their phones, but
They're not on the internet.
Yeah, but they're playing video games and stuff like that. So we literally give them from this time to this time. When you get home from school, you can play.
Right.
And then devices go away, and then from this time to this time at the dinner table, family dinners, things like that, there are no devices.
No
It is
devices at
about
all.
us. We're going around the table. We're talking about things that we're grateful for. We're like really trying to connect every time. And then, hey, you've got a half an hour before bed. So yeah, go play. Play a little more before you do
Boundaries.
that if you want to.
But they're young, right? But Randy, what do you think about, like, for kids in the home? Your kids are obviously a little older than ours. What is a, like,
Age appropriate?
Age appropriate. I mean, I get the need for phones these days for kids, right? They're out or they're doing things, but like for emergencies or whatever. But where you have a smile on your face.
I have a smile on my face because this is such a big
it's a hot topic.
Because my kids don't have phones even for periods of time.
And how old are they again?
They're 12 and 10.
Yeah, see, I think that's perfect.
They don't have their own phone.
So do they have no device time at all?
They have no device time other than we'll FaceTime, family, friends.
So they'll be on your phone.
They'll be on my phone.
Got it.
I'll share something with them. My daughter will listen to Oldish,
Right.
the youngest, who really loves
it.
That's so cute. But yeah, I don't know. Again, this is such a bigger thing to talk about, but I just don't see the massive benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like there's more cost than benefit. And one could argue like there's connection, there's things that you learn. Yes, you can go to a computer and look up the same things. I just don't. I see the behavior. I see, and when watching a little person go and start to look at the phone and be drawn into it, I just think, wow, we're all so addicted anyway. Why then do we partake in this? And look,
Right.
I'm not trying to preach here. I think everyone can make their own choice. You have to do what's right for you. I have some friends who are so deeply into technology and praise it and love it and just think it is the best thing. So I don't demonize it.
It's just a difference of opinion.
Right. What do you think, in your opinion, is age appropriate, or where there becomes a need for a phone as far as communication? Kids are starting to go out on, they're older now. They've got going to see movies with friends.
I think that's
do you give a phone then?
Of a question to I don't know.
But you can get, I forget what they're called, more like a dumb phone. If the parent really needs to get a hold of the child, you could get a watch. They have ways where you could just make calls or text, but that you don't necessarily have to be on the internet or social.
Right.
And,
social media. I can't imagine us letting our kids have access to the
one of the
internet or
things
social media for a long time.
So I completely understand your view on it, and I so respect it, and I get it completely. The view for me, which is, this is the only part that varies, is that I'm constantly towing the line between social media. I think social media for kids is just a terrible way to go, no matter what.
The Surgeon General, by the way, the Surgeon General came out with a warning. And if the Surgeon General is coming out, that's way far behind.
Right.
When the Surgeon General was smoking.
Yeah,
right.
So at the point when the Surgeon General is pointing it out, things have really gone bad.
That kids should not, I think it was age under 12, if I'm not mistaken. Let's check that. Shouldn't be on social media.
Right.
Oh, I agree with that completely.
So
the battle for me with,
and many years
with
after.
devices and all of that is that I feel like just with the world and the way things are changing, I walk into restaurants and to order food, you've got touch screens and laptops and things like that, and everything is now wireless pay, and so it's I toe the line of protecting the kids, but then doing a disservice by overprotecting them and keeping them away from the natural place that the world seems to be going, the direction that it's headed. Mm-hmm.
I think though there's a difference though, baby, because we protect them from the internet and from social media. They don't have access to even some of the games they play. They have no access to chat with people. There is literally none of that.
Right.
But they do have the ability to learn how to use a device, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Noah has a phone that can make calls and texts should we need it to. But yeah, we definitely protect them from the outside world like that.
But that's what I was saying. That's the difference in view between the way things are at our house and then the way they are at Randy's house. Randy is like, I don't want them around at all. Like, you can use my phone if you need to FaceTime or do stuff like that.
Yeah.
Our kids, we have the absolute ways that we try and protect them with all devices and social media. And I think that, I think like Apple has put some really cool things into place where parents have so much control now over these accounts and the things. I can literally limit how much time my kids are on. They just shut down at a certain point. I can limit what they have access to, whether they even have a Safari button on their phone or not.
Which they don't.
So, you have control that way. But it is, I think it's an individual thing. I mean, I think there are things absolutely that we all agree on within this room of social media is you start crossing into a new territory, and it opens up the door, I think, to a whole bunch of problems of kids' insecurity and wanting to validation and all of that with
so much.
commenting.
So
yeah.
You open a door to so many evils with it.
New episode unlocked, guys. Kids and social media for another day.
Yeah.
By the way, Michaela just checked, and it is 13. Surgeon General, 13 years old.
See, my opinion, 16.
Probably. That's where I'm at.
16 at earliest.
At least.
Yeah.
Especially oh my God, for girls, you have girls I'm sorry, fuck that.
Yeah.
Like, I cannot imagine being in high school with all the things that girls go through at that age, those ages where you start developing with your body or your skin might get bad or whatever that is. I cannot imagine experiencing school and high school with the days of social media.
Yes.
I just cannot. And then also the filters that they can put on to see themselves look like a completely different person. I can't imagine that either. Like, again, another episode unlocked. We shall get back to this.
I was just going to say, let's get back to the addiction questions.
Ashley had no idea what that question was going to
Ashley, you just gave us a new episode.
You just opened a whole can of worms for us, Ashley.
Thank you, Ashley. So let's laser some of these.
Yeah.
We can get through some of these.
Great. Steve wants to know, Randy, when did your parents find out that you were struggling? Did Tori and friends try to talk to you before the intervention?
My parents probably knew that story that I told you about the car on the off-ramp. That was my a DUI moment. And I think at that point, having to spend the night in jail and my mom bailed me out. I mean, I think at that point it was, okay, there's
a problem here.
There's a problem here. Tori and my friends, did they try and talk to me before the intervention? Yeah, my friends thought I was going to die. I know I shared that last time.
Yeah, you did.
I was in Las Vegas once, actually, and I was with about 5 guys, and I went down in the lobby of a hotel, and a bodybuilder guy that we were with, huge, it was like 260, all muscle, had to pound on my chest because he thought that my heart stopped.
Oh, wow.
So,
wow.
It was intense. So my friends talked to me all the time. An episode like this would happen, and then my friends I would come to, and I'd have to face them, and they would be staring at me going, dude, you're going to die. Stop doing what you're doing.
I think this ties right in with Deanna, the next question. How can I support someone with addiction? Because that's what you're talking about, your friends sort of being around and trying to help you through it. How can someone support someone else with an addiction problem?
Well, we covered this a little bit with the first question today.
Yeah.
It's talking with them, but I would also say it's nuanced, right? It's so nuanced when talking to someone with addiction, because on one hand, you could just drive them away. On the other hand, if you're too loosey-goosey and you just let them do what they're doing, like, I kind of wish my friends, not their fault, but I kind of wish someone would really have just knocked some sense into me and been like,
but what would have worked? What would have worked?
I don't know.
That's the thing, right?
I don't know, because I had done all the things. So you're right. But there's this fine line, and we talked about it last week, of tough love versus just supporting.
Yeah.
And again, resources, push the resources.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to educate themselves as much as possible on the addiction that somebody has.
Yes.
Right.
Because in educating yourself, then you can figure out what it is, what it's like for that person that's going through it, and then you can figure out possibly the best ways of helping them
Yeah, I think really going to those meetings that Randy has talked about as, you know, as a sober person, but trying to support someone going through addiction, I think that just helps you understand the nuances, as Randy says, that everyone's story is different, and maybe helps you find support in those meetings of other people experiencing what you are.
There are resources. There's so many resources.
There's so many
out there.
resources these days.
Do not be afraid to reach out. If someone you love is struggling with something, just look. There's so much available at this point.
You can go with them, by the way. You know, one of those meetings that you talked about, a support group, offer to go with them. Hey, let's go. I'll drive. Right. Just go with them and see, because one of the biggest things that I hear from people early on in addiction is they go, oh, those AA meetings or NA meetings. Some people love them.
Right.
Some people get in those rooms and they compare themselves to the other people's stories and they go, I'm nothing like this. They see how different they are without realizing the similarity of struggling with the addiction. And the best thing about that is you may not have to do this forever.
Yeah.
Just what we talked about. Mm-hmm. But right now, in the acute phase, when you're trying to stop and it's so damn hard, maybe this is a place that can help you.
Next question.
And we touched on this a little bit before. My husband recently became sober, and I've been avoiding alcohol for him. I like to have a drink once in a while, and now I feel guilty. Am I a bad wife for wanting a drink or for feeling guilty?
No, Michelle, you are not a bad wife. Actually, asking this question shows that you are caring and supportive, and you're thinking about him. So no guilt in wanting to partake in something that you don't have a problem with, but a loved one does.
Mm-hmm.
Addiction seems to be a very individual thing. It's different for everyone. So I kind of feel like reading the room, really knowing what your husband is going through, and then knowing what really observing what the triggers are, and being aware of those, and then trying to avoid those triggers as much as possible. And if you are having issues with those, talking about it, I would say being open and communicating through all of it is super important.
Yes. I would think, as you've said here, that he is recently sober. So, you know, being, which you already are, but just to affirm what you're doing, that being mindful, especially when you're with him in his company, of you're standing there with him in solidarity. You are supporting him in his journey of being sober. You know, if I could imagine that if, you know, you're there with him and it's some sort of gathering and you're having a drink and then you go to kiss him and you taste like alcohol, like all of those things we should be mindful of. But if you're in your own space with your friends and you are somewhere else, you should absolutely enjoy your life. It is not you that is battling with addiction. So you do have to have that balance, right? Where you can feel and live that part of you that can enjoy a social occasion.
This is her husband. I mean,
and then be with your husband and fully support him. But you should never, ever feel bad for wanting to enjoy a drink.
One of the beauties of being married is that you hopefully have that line of communication. You have that ability to sit down and talk about these things. Talk about, what makes it hard for you and uncomfortable, and what makes it uncomfortable for him as well, and try and find different points and different things to agree on and figure out together. I think for him, and going through a recent sobriety, it would be amazing for him to hear your concern,
right,
and to know that you genuinely do not want to do anything that triggers him in any way. So then he on his own can say, you know what, I really appreciate that, but these things don't necessarily. And so, you know, continuing to keep that open line of communication,
yes,
I think is the key to a situation like this.
Absolutely. Ryan, do you think picking a hobby or keeping yourself busy to avoid triggers can be helpful?
We just talked about that. Yeah, you were saying that busying yourself sometimes, especially early on in sobriety, is really important to do. Right?
I think it's a must.
Yeah,
I think it's a have to. I have given clients who are struggling with addiction. I'm not everyone that I work with, obviously,
right,
has addiction.
Yeah.
But I have given them homework of make a list of things that you have been interested in, that you like to do, things that you did when you were a kid, and make a huge giant list and pick off that list. If you're in a moment where you're getting, a little bit itchy, right? And you're thinking, ooh, I want to do something, or you're bored, go do something, go do a craft, go do a hobby, go pick, just busy yourself, especially at the beginning. It's really important.
Absolutely.
How do I tell my wife that I think I have an addiction?
Wow, big question.
Yeah, that is a big question.
It's a big question without more context. And this is why sometimes it's helpful to have a back and forth, because there's more to that. There's something underneath that. Why haven't you told them yet? What is holding you back from telling them? Where is that fear coming from? So based on where that fear is coming from, that is what needs to be addressed. I'm worried that you're going to judge me. I'm worried that you're going to look at me different. I'm worried that you're going to leave me.
Right.
Whatever that is.
We're already having issues. Could this be the straw that broke the camel's back?
Exactly.
Is now the right time?
So identify what your fear is. What are you most afraid of? And then in a heartfelt way, talk to your wife about that, about what you're most afraid of.
Do you think there is anything in this person or people that haven't yet shared with their partner their suffering and addiction, in going to some of those meetings and to helping them find maybe why they're there, or what their fears are, or finding language around it, even maybe watching other people speak about their addictions at these meetings? Do you think there is something in that for people to, if they're afraid of sharing it with their loved one, to still not hold off on seeking help, but to seek help straight away and then learn how to communicate with their family?
Sure. Yeah, I think there's so many ways. I mean, there can be meetings, support groups. There can be a therapist or professional, someone to help support that person in speaking
in knowing how to communicate.
And knowing how to communicate, because there's a lot of self-work in that, right? Someone might be bumping up against their fear of abandonment. And so the idea of telling your significant other and then your significant other leaving could be so crushing that you just don't tell them. And then you're spinning out, lying, and doing all of these other behaviors to protect what you're most afraid of. So, yes.
This last question is a big one. I don't know how to answer this. I have anxiety over this question all the time. When should I start talking to my kids about drugs and alcohol?
I don't think there is an exact right answer. I don't think 4 years old is necessarily the best, in my opinion.
Right.
But I think as a parent, you'll get an idea. You'll get some sort of nudge or something like, oh, they're asking about it. They might be talking about it. Something might come home from school where people are mentioning it. And I think at that point, you can speak to them about it in an age-appropriate way and share whatever it is you want to share. I mean, I think the biggest thing about drugs and alcohol, because I'm curious what Caitlin specifically wants to talk to them about. Is it just about drugs and alcohol? Is it that you have a history and you want to talk to them about the history? But educate, like have it be an open and live discussion, because the more that you can talk to your kids in a way that's open, the less taboo it is. And if a subject is taboo, they're not going to want to come to you with something that is taboo, like sex or alcohol or drugs. But if it's not taboo and it's more comfortable, they are more likely to bring it up.
To share with you.
Yeah.
Open communication. It's a tough one, baby.
Yeah.
Like, come on. How do we even?
Yeah, I dread these conversations. I do.
Actually have deep fear of karma biting me in the ass for all the fear that I get, like the stress that I put my mom through. Like, Mike, I'm so sorry.
Well, honestly, too, it's just, Caitlin, that is a really good question. I mean, that is that is on the minds, I think, of
Every parent.
Probably most parents.
It's such a good question.
At what point do you
Brian.
talk to them about all sorts of things, drugs, alcohol, sex? Like, it's defining when that moment is tough because it's completely different with every single child.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I would say just be open to looking for the signs. And when kids start showing you that natural curiosity about those subjects, then you get into those conversations. And like Randy said, you make it a conversation. You take the taboo out of it. You make it a conversation where it's like, oh yeah, no, you want to talk about that right now? Sure, let's do that. Like, it's not, I'm not afraid of doing it. I'm not stretching and prepping myself for this conversation. I'm not like, let me go make some tea first because this is a really tough one. It's like,
I might make some tea first. I'm serious.
You might need a cuppa.
I might need a cuppa and some bickies. Oh, cup of tea and some bickies. That's what my nan used to say.
You know, it's like Santa Claus. We tried hard not to pump Santa Claus, but it just came in. Everyone, what did Santa get you for Christmas?
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I guess we're going to go with Santa Claus. And I remember one night my girls were, I don't remember, maybe 7, 8. And I was giving them a bath. And it was just me and them. And we're making up games. And all of a sudden they said, so tell us the truth. Is Santa real?
Oh, they're so young. No.
And I said, oh shit, it's going to go down right now. I wasn't prepared for this. I have no tea.
I have no tea, no bickies.
I have nothing prepared in my mind. However, if they're asking me, they're ready. And the one thing I never want to do, probably won't happen, but the one thing I never want to do, I try my hardest, is not to lie.
Right.
I may not tell every single detail.
Sure.
But I do not want to lie. And if those eyes were looking up at me curious because obviously they're feeling and sensing something, I want to validate what they're sensing and feeling. So if the child brings something up to you, that's living in them. And if it's living in them, acknowledge it.
Yeah, such good advice.
Santa Claus still comes to my house, so I have no idea what it is you're talking about.
Let's be real. Noah, I would think, absolutely knows at this point. But because Bodhi and Journey are younger, I think Noah chooses to keep the magic alive for them.
Which is a beautiful thing. And keep it alive for me as well.
Oh, yeah. I'm all about it. Like, I'm ready to put the footprints coming out from the chimney.
Right, yeah.
And
The hooves.
Oh, my God.
Have you done the hooves?
No, not the hooves, but the boot prints.
Yeah.
I even got these things off Etsy one year where
Sharna's
it's
all
like
about
Santa's driver's license accidentally got left behind.
Oh, for sure.
Like,
we have like the mailbox and stuff.
The mailbox, they put their lists in, and then the elves take that. No, I live for this. I'm going to be devastated when they grow out of it.
Take that. I have no idea what you guys are talking about because I am a Santa believer and probably always will be.
Yeah.
Everyone,
best.
Thank you so much for
thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Going through this with us. Addiction is a big topic, and it's not always the most fun to talk about. But I think it's a very relevant thing in people's lives, and something, even if you're not struggling with this or someone that is struggling, it plants the seed to look out for.
Right.
If there's someone who is, and I think eventually there will be someone on the path in your life who is. So thank you for going through this with us and listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yes, you guys are amazing. Make sure you guys go and follow us on Instagram at oldishpod. And you can also go and leave us a message at our own hotline, which is 855-OLDISH-3.
Make sure and write us a review. Leave us 5 stars if you loved it. Leave us 5 stars if you didn't.
We love 5 stars. We love 5 stars.
Yeah. We like 5 stars.
Yeah. See you next week.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
See you next week, everyone.